Oh, welcome back, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
To episode 11. How are
It's
you
already
doing?
episode 11. Time flies.
How art thou?
I had a super boring week, like entire week, and it was pretty sweet. I got a lot of stuff done. Nothing to talk about, but I was happy with it.
Didn't do anything for Labor Day?
Say that again?
Didn't do anything for Labor Day?
No, I did a bunch of chores for Labor Day. I finished editing the CD, so I'm going to send it off to the guy that finishes the volumes and all of the final touches. So once that's done, it's in his hands, and then I think he should be able to finish it pretty quick. But
That's exciting.
I spent so much time this weekend trying to finish that. I spent like 6 hours trying to do that.
I
So
believe it. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for putting all the effort and work into doing that. Explain to everyone what you're talking about.
yeah, so we had a recording, just a local recording for a CD for our local church, and there was 8 songs, and I was the director for it. And it was my first time directing a choir, and it was my first time dealing with all the audio and all the recording and stuff. So there was a brother Sam, who helped initially do the recording. Like, he sat at the recording booth and he listened and made sure everything was good. But he's been really busy in his personal life, so I said that I would try to take the files and work with them as I could. And so I took them. I've spent a bunch of time editing them. I've even done a little bit of my, like, where the piano part, you can hear it gets messed up a little bit. So I went to other tracks and I took out the same part where it sounded better and I spliced it in. And
Mm.
so I think it sounds good for being a complete amateur. I'm really happy with it. So we'll see what the final product turns out to sound like, but I'm happy
Have
with it.
Have you learned a lot from the editing?
Dude, ChatGPT is insane. It solved so many of my problems. I didn't even know how to word it, and I would just type in a bunch of these random keywords and would be like, "Oh, this is what you need to do." And
Really?
so it was this program called Reaper, some audio program,
Hmm.
and I've never used it before. I've kind of used some other ones, but I didn't know any of the keyboard shortcuts. I didn't know any of the editing stuff, and ChatGPT clutched, dude. I love that thing.
That's actually awesome.
So, what about you? How was your week?
I'm pretty sick right now, to be honest. So
Really?
I'm like, I'm like half awake. I kind of like, I took a nap. I came home. I got some carne asada fries for after work from my family, which are amazing. Which, it's insane how expensive fast food is now. I mean, my mom didn't want anything. She wasn't feeling that great, so I just bought a burrito for my dad, 2 carne asada fries, one for Joey, one for me. Almost $60.
6-0? What?
Is that
For
insane? How
a
expensive?
burrito and
I
two
gave a
fries?
$6 tip, and my dad got extra meat. But but no drinks. These weren't even meals. This place has not ever been this expensive before. Everything is just getting. I went the other day for the same amount of people for 3 meals. For Jared and Uncle Gordy, I I went to Wendy's. I got 3 burgers. Um, no, I didn't even get 3 burgers. I got 2 burgers and 1 nuggets, because Jared wanted nuggets because he's a child. And then I got large
What's
fries
wrong
for
with that?
myself and drinks. And it was like 40 something bucks from Wendy's for 3 people.
Dude, go to Chipotle. You get a huge burrito bowl for $10, chicken burrito bowl.
Yeah.
My favorite. So good. But yeah,
Because,
everything is expensive.
yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, sorry. Yeah. So I'm sick right now. If I sound a little sick, I apologize to everybody. I worked today and a little bit of yesterday. So I'm just exhausted. It's already tiring when you work in the sun when you're not sick, but when you're being sick on top of it, it's no bueno. But it's all right. I got a little bit of cures, and
A
I
little
got a
bit
little
of
bit of
what?
cures.
Oh, cures.
Cures. Coors Light. I can't get Coors Light. I got Coors Banquet.
You should not be drinking that when you're sick.
Dude, when you work a really long day, a hot day in the sun, Sometimes one Coors Banquet hits the spot.
Okay.
And it's just my sinuses, really. Um, I don't have like aches or chill. Well, I have a little bit of aches, but not like chills or nothing like that. So I'm not like, if I was like sick, then I would definitely wouldn't be drinking anything. But
Yeah.
it was one of those days it was like 95 degrees and I was sitting in the sun and I was like, you know what I need right now is just one cruise.
Cruise.
A little bit of, did I send you that song? Colorado Kool-Aid?
I think you did. Yeah.
I gotta send it to you again. You ever had a little Colorado Kool-Aid? It's a fresh batch of Kears from a mountain in Colorado Spring, or Colorado Spring and Mountain. But yeah, so that was what's been going on. I kind of got sick Sunday afternoon. That's why I wasn't at church in the afternoon. I was there in the morning, but I didn't go in the afternoon. So I had to teach Sunday school in the morning. Taught with
Yeah.
Josh. So Josh is back, older brother. He's moved back. He moved most of his stuff the beginning of or the end of last week, and he had to go back to bring his wife back. So and the rest of their stuff. So they'll be coming back this weekend, and hopefully sooner or later we'll be seeing him on the podcast. But
Nice.
so that was cool. It was a pretty packed weekend. So I was doing that with Joshua. I was looking at open houses. I was going around looking at different open houses. I got a cool birthday present. My birthday's not till October, but the present came in early. My sister bought me this, so she gave it to me so it wouldn't just be sitting at her house. So we ended up originally getting this from my older brother Jacob. Um, it's a subscription box, and it's like a seasonal thing. And so we bought my brother Jacob. His birthday's in May or March. It's May, so we sent him. Sorry, I have a lot of siblings. Is in May, so we sent him the May seasonal version of this gift. My sister forgot to cancel subscription because me and her put money together to buy it for him. And so she then got the summer box. Now the fall box got sent to her and she figured, this time it was purposeful. She's like, I'm just going to give it to Johnny for his birthday. Even though my birthday's in October, it came in September. So this is what it's called. It's called Sukuro. It's a monthly um it's a monthly box or a seasonal box for every season called it's a Japanese artisan snack box. So
What?
everything that's on here, it's on camera for those who are watching. Um, everything that is in here is from like local street vendors in Japan. Like everything in here originated from Japan. And it's has a different theme. So this one is fall, which is their autumn moon festival. And it's kind of just like a Japanese book where it goes from right to left. Um, for those of you who don't know, I love Japan. Um, and it
So it
just
goes backwards.
yeah, it goes backwards because in Japan they read from right to left.
Huh. Cool.
So it shows you all the different things in there, all the things that comes with the different snacks. And then it takes you through what part of Japan they come from, and it highlights like different history, different legends, different mythology. It talks about the like it says right here, it says, "Welcome to the autumn moon. Each autumn, Japan celebrates Tsukumi, or Tsukimi, yeah, Tsukimi, which translates directly to moon viewing. This seasonal tradition is steeped in gratitude and quiet reflections under the full harvest moon. It serves as a gentle it serves as a gentle reminder to find meaning in nature's fleeting moments. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, so does our days." So it's kind of cool, huh? And it's just like it goes through all the different places that it was bought from, all the different treats on there. And one of the coolest things is it comes with a little piece of china. Right? I don't know if you'd still call it china, but a little pottery that was made by the locals there. I'll show you. Um, which I think this is mainly like I'm going to use it probably for tea, but I think it's supposed to be a matcha bowl. But apparently something with the culture of Japan, like they associate September or fall time with bunnies. So because it's the moon festival, you can see on the pottery here, there's little bunnies and there's like a big moon.
Huh.
And it's like this was like handmade pottery from Japan, like really nice. So
That's pretty
I
cool.
I thought it was really cool. If you are a fan of Japan culture, um, I would suggest getting one of these. It's just cool to have at least once. They are pricey, like it's actually not that cheap. Um, And then look, isn't this the most perfect birthday card Elena found for me?
Oh man.
That was a pretty cool picture. Um, so
Hey, have
yeah,
you haven't been to Japan, have you?
no, I really want to go one day
When are you going?
when I get married. Look at that. Isn't that a cool postcard?
Yeah.
It's like cool Japan art. My dream is to go to Japan with my wife one day. But if that couldn't happen, if I ever get married, ain't happening. If that ever does happen, if it doesn't ever happen, I'm definitely want to go with all my brothers, Jacob, Josh, and Joey, because we all love Japan and we all have a big heart for it. A lot of stuff there. We grew up on like the Ghibli movies, which was like the Japanese version of Disney. So like as a little kid, me and my little brother, like we watched Japanese like Disney kind of growing up. So um yeah, there's a lot of weird things about Japan, which actually kind of ties into some of the things I wanted to talk about
Okay.
today. But surprising, I didn't even realize until I just said it. Japan has its pros and it has its cons. Um, it's a big respect culture. It's very beautiful. It's a very clean place. Um, it's it's xenophobic, which is kind of nice. Not for us. It's nice for them, but also as a visitor, like if you're just super respectful, if you go to some touristy areas in other parts of the world, like Europe or other parts like that, they're so touristy that people are just mean and rude and they're gross and it's unclean because of the amount of traffic. But that's because like the people want the tourists. They get a lot of money from the tourism. But in Japan, they're super xenophobic, which just basically means like they hate outsiders. They're very like insider. They're like, look, like we just want to be left alone.
hmm
Japan has kind of become like, especially because of anime, so many people, especially in the West, are obsessed with Japan. And they're like, look, Japan is not an anime. We're just normal people living normal lives, and a bunch of loud Americans, like 6 foot Americans, coming and screaming on the
And those are the
train.
worst kinds of Americans too, dude.
Yeah, but that's like the average American is like we're loud compared to like we might not consider ourselves loud. Like we're not like Mexican loud, but like or black people loud, but Japan is like super quiet. So to them, we sound like super anyone that's not Japanese or Asian, like on a train, it's like dead silent. It's like
Yeah.
quiet. If you talk, you sneeze, you apologize. You keep to yourself. Here in America, you go on the subway and you got people with a saxophone in the middle of the subway's train, blasting music as the train is moving, and like people like handing out their mixtapes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's yeah, no. So there's xenophobe, but it's also nice because it's a quieter environment, just because people want to be more respectful there. There's more like there's more depth. Their culture is ancient, and so there's a lot more depth to kind of some of their practices and the things they've been doing, the way they've been doing things for a very long time. So there's some cool pros like that. They're very traditional. They're more conservative usually. I don't know much about the next generation, but there's downsides to it. Like they are less than 1% Christian, which is really funny because right next door, South Korea, right across the water there, is like 80% Christian. Very, very Christian. That's why when you go to most Korean restaurants, they're gonna have like a cross in them, or they're playing Christian music. Most Koreans are Christians,
Hmm.
but even if it's just secular, even if it's just nominal, but it's like they're more Christian than us Americans. But in Japan, funny story about how basically after World War II, because of their culture and the way it was like this warrior respect honor system, this is a story. I'm not 100% how true it is, but from what I understand, was after World War II, after we basically gave them the power of the sun and nuked Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they surrendered, obviously, in a secret discussion between them and I think it was Nixon that dropped the bomb
I
or
forget who it
Truman,
was.
Truman or Nixon. I forgot. You want to look that up really quick? You're quicker on the looking up things. Either Truman or Nixon, I think.
Let's see. Truman.
Yeah, it was Truman. Okay, I think Nixon was Vietnam. Um. Anyhow, what do you call? Their response and their surrendering, like okay, when they were having like surrender deals, apparently like in the closed room, the prime minister, the president, or the leaders of Japan, they basically told Nixon, they're like, or Truman, they told them, they're like, hey, or they're like, hey, since you defeated us, we will adopt your guys' religion. And since America was known as a Christian country to the rest of the world, even though it isn't, but it was always like, that's how people always see us, as a Christian country. The Japanese like basically said like, hey, we will accept Christianity as like our state religion, and that would mean basically everyone would then become a Christian, because that was just the culture back then. You just did what the government did, or that was like whatever. It wouldn't be so uncommon.
Hmm.
Truman was like, Truman was like, no need, like, he had like awkward. He's like, it's no need. You don't need to accept our religion. Like, just like in the peace deals or whatever. It's so funny that one decision by one president, had he had been a little bit different, had it been like a different president, like Abraham Lincoln or something, who was making that, Japan would be majority Christian now. Imagine how
Should have
many.
said yes.
Seriously, he should have. And now look how it's changed. Like Japan is now a lot of problems because of their secularism. They're
Hmm.
very materialistic. They're very like, they have one of the high suicide rates. I don't know if they still do, but for a long time they had high suicide rates. There's literally a suicide forest in Japan that's known for, just because people just go there to kill themselves,
Hmm.
hang themselves. People jump off buildings. Like, it's not. Um, Most people, I'm pretty sure, know someone who's killed themselves, from what I understand.
Hmm.
I don't know how I'm sure about that, but I do know they have a high suicide rate because they're very like, everything's about score. Like, you have to apply to get into high schools.
What?
The same way that's how important education is. And they're so materialistic and so business oriented that your life is valued on your success. That like they have like, you have to be accepted to go into most high schools. The same way we view colleges is how they view high schools. If you get into like a public high school where you didn't have to apply into it, it's like basically a community college. It was just like
Hmm.
looked down upon. Um, and then and then also just like business, very business orientated, very like, you work your 9 to 5, if not more hours, workaholics, and it's very socially. You don't really mingle outside of your own family. Like, you don't really,
Hmm.
like, you have your little apartment complex. It's basically the size of my room, and I don't have a big room here. Everyone's like, they're basically like cattle, unless you live in like Okinawa, in like the countryside, where you have like a rice farm and you're probably more wealthy. Majority of people live like in Tokyo, because remember, this is just an island. Like, Japan's just a big island, and the majority of it's just this massive city. It's like New York on steroids. It's like
Hmm.
Manhattan Island times like 1,000. And excuse me. And so you basically have all these people that are like cattle, as far as like how they're all like living, just so like pressed into these like massive high rises. And they're not very social. Like, you kind of know your own family, and if you don't really know your own family, you might have a few friends from high school that you go and like do karaoke. Like, their version of like a sports bar is like karaoke. So we call, in America, we have like sports bar. Like, you're like, kind of a drunk, you go to sports bars. At least in Colorado, you don't really go to a bar unless you're an alcoholic. If in Ohio, you go to a bar, like, I'm talking about regularly. And somewhere in like Ohio, it's actually more like a cultural thing where like even families would go to bars, like go to watch the game or watch sports. Where me and you live in Colorado, like if you know someone who regularly hits up a bar, they're an alcoholic. Like, that's not normal in Colorado culture. It's not like, I go
Yeah,
with
I
my,
think breweries are more common for us because there's
yeah,
local, like we have a local brewery right next to our library, and you just see
yeah.
all these families going out and hanging out there.
Breweries are a lot more normal. That's because it's like hippie Colorado. Like, that's just like the styles
Yeah.
breweries. But yeah, like people who like hit up sports bars like all the time is like not too, from my understanding, like is not too normal. At least from like the people who I've worked with in the past. But anyhow, in Japan they have karaoke bars. That's like super popular out there. And so like, it's just your life is you go do karaoke bars with your friends, or you play video games online. And I think COVID destroyed places like Japan, which are already super isolated. In some ways, they were already kind of prepped for it because they already wear masks all the time over there because of pollution, and just because the dense population is so dense that you're squished like sardines into the subway when you go onto the plane. Like, you're literally back to back, tushy to tushy. Like, that's how like compact everything is. So they always wear masks anyway, so they don't get each other sick. Like, it was already kind of part of their culture way before COVID was a thing, for a long time. And then also like the social awkwardness and kind of like introvertism was already pretty normal, but it was not good for their mental health. And I think COVID made it like way worse. So there is revival. There's entire like Christian ministries of like Japanese who've come to faith, who are like spreading the gospel among Japan, and it's really cool to see. So I do think there is revival happening, though it's still small. It's still, I think, less than 1% Christian. That's
Hmm.
recorded at least. But there's also there's also one thing that really bothers me a lot, and this is what was going to tie into some of the other things I was thinking about talking about today. A recurring theme on our podcast because it is something that's being exposed so much today in American culture. But in Japan, for whatever reason, they really like to sexualize children. Like it is very normal to what do you call sexualized kids? Um, that kind of
Pros and
gets to
cons.
yeah,
Definitely a con.
it's a serious con. They're very very perverted.
Hmm.
That's one thing too. Like there's entire genres. So they have anime, which is animation, just means animation in Japan. But anime is just like it's very popular. It's not just a children thing; it's an adult thing too. And there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad anime. You can't. It's such a huge variety. It's like if you hate if there's like some messed up movies out there, and you say you just hate movies in general. To say someone's like all anime, you can't lump it all up into the same thing because there's so many different varieties of them. There's some really good anime out there, and then there's some really bad ones. Because that's like they they produce more anime than they do movies, and that's for their own people and for Westerners as well, and all across the world. Anime is kind of taken the world by storm as far as like popularity. And so the only reason I'm saying that is because I don't want to just discredit all of anime when I say there's a whole genre of anime that's like for like sexualizing children. It's
Hmm.
really weird. It's called like lolly anime, and even in like normal subnormal animes, you can see little hints of it, and it's like totally legal, and it's very like subtle where they'll do it because it's not like it's legalized over there, right? You'll get arrested if you get caught doing stuff with little kids, but they basically like legalize the production of like child porn almost like in the sense that's like softcore sometimes, and the way they get around it is they just make an adult character have like be like really small and be like a child. So they
Hmm.
sound like a child, super high pitched. They act like a child, like a super cutesy thing, like literally like an innocent little girl. It's always girls. It's never boys. It's always girls. Um, it shows you how weird and perverted their culture. I mean, it would be perverted both ways, but like you can kind of see who the demographic is over there.
Hmm.
And these little girls and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, this is like a 300-year-old. This is how they get around. They're like, this is a 300-year-old fairy and stuff like that's like part of the plot of the show. And this like main character is like falling in love with it, and then it's like, what the heck? It's like because you've said 300 years
Yeah.
old. It's clearly as a characteristic of a child. So it's like that's one of the negatives. One of the things I really hate about Japan. I'm really skeptical of like any of a lot of dumb stuff I see from there. Um, I wouldn't say that's like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But from my understanding, that's not like deep rooted in its ancient culture. That's just more of like the perversion of its modern culture.
Hmm.
So those are some pretty negative.
Well, I mean,
Um,
all cultures have a lot of sexual perversion in them, right? Even in America, a lot of the movies, a lot of the advertisements online, even billboards driving down the street, you'll just see these sexual images and you're just, where did that come from? Why?
yeah,
And it's because it sells and it sells very, very well. So you
yeah,
have all this younger generation of people who are essentially prostituting themselves out online for, a couple bucks here and there. And
hmm
then it's harmful to everybody. It's harmful to the people who are producing it. It's harmful to the people that are watching it. It's harmful to, doesn't matter if you're a young teenager or if you're 70 years old, right?
yeah,
Anybody in between there, it's harmful for everybody.
yeah. And we can just dog Japan about the fact that they like openly produce soft child porn or just like child sexualization, but we also need to be fair and realize that America consumes the most child porn and,
Hmm.
and produces some of the most legitimate like physical. Not I'm not even talking animations. We're one of the biggest consumers and producers of it. Um, it might be the fact that we are a nation of 300 million people and Japan's significantly smaller, so scale wise, it's not necessarily 100% fair to, but at the same time, like we're consuming it. We're one of the biggest bases for it. Um, maybe not the biggest, but definitely from what I've heard of quite a few people that, have been on like Sean Ryan's podcast that try to, um, fight against child trafficking and exploitation. They they talk a lot about how America is some of the biggest consumers. I mean, they even talked about it in the Sound of Freedom movie that me and you went to watch together. It's disgusting. It's like they went down to Colombia to bust this child trafficking ring in the movie, and it's like the majority of the consumers of the videos that are being made down there are Americans.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, we're the Christian nation, my guza.
I was trying to find it, but yeah, there was. So for those of you that don't know what Johnny was talking about with the Sean Ryan show, there's this guy named Ryan Montgomery who's a really, really good hacker. And he has devoted a lot of his time recently to doing sting operations on these websites that are hosting all of this child porn. Um, and so I think it was either his or somebody else who he had on where they literally pulled out a chart. Oh, it was Tim Tebow, I think.
Mm,
Tim Tebow is also doing something where he's trying to help rescue kids out of this sexual abuse.
yeah,
And he pulled up a chart, and America was like, I think America consumed the most child material by 3 or 4 times. It was some insane number. So it's definitely very close to home, which is a terrible, terrible thing.
yeah. We
So
look
that,
at ourselves as like above other nations morally sometimes, and we look at all these other third world countries as though they're like backwards, and it's like, man, dude, it's almost like we're Rome again. And you know, it's kind of funny is like, you know, and then he hasn't just had Ryan Montgomery. That was like the first initial one, how I found Sean Ryan's podcast, which is an amazing podcast. I suggest it to anyone. He also had Victor Marks, which is really cool. Victor Marks, he's the one I think I might have sent you his story, the one who had the crazy abusive dad who I ended up having to forgive him.
I don't remember
I'll have
that.
to send it to you. It's a two-parter, one of the greatest stories, and this guy lives in Black Forest. Isn't that
What?
crazy? He's like a super famous guy, and he lives in Black Forest. It's a really cool
Wow.
in Colorado. So whatever that he is at that guy who also his like job he has like he literally has a nonprofit. I don't know if it's a nonprofit or it's just his own company where he goes around the world and like specifically Africa and like hunts down child predators. He also had Tim Tebow on, like you said. Tim Tebow has his entire organization too where they are fighting child trafficking. He had Jim Caviezel, who was the actor who was playing Tim I forgot his name. It's the guy that he was playing. It's Tim something. He's the guy that he was playing in The Sound of Freedom that is doing these um Tim
Tebow.
no, it's Timoteo is what they call him in the movie because the little kid it's a patron saint of I think of children or the lost. But anyways, so like he's had a lot of different people on there, and then his last guest, which the one I listened to today, was John Rich, who I love. John Rich, mainly because if you guys haven't been able to tell yet, I like me some country music. And John Rich was a famous country singer, and he's a really hardcore Christian. He you might have seen him. He went on Jordan Peterson's podcast and like straight up told Jordan like, all right, this isn't a mythology. Do you believe in Jesus or not? Like he straight up asked him, he's like, when you stand before Jesus Christ, what are you going to say before? Like he was asking him, like hard pushing him, like, do you believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God, not just a
What
psychological?
do you mean by
Well,
Jesus
you see, the
Christ?
thing is, what exactly do you mean by think, and what do you mean by believe? Is Jesus Christ the Son of God? Well, what does the Son of God mean? Well, Jordan, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
But John Rich, he said to Jordan, he said, um, Christ says, if you aren't willing to confess me in front of man, I won't confess you in front of my Father. Because Jordan's basically said he believes in Jesus, but he's like, but you know, it also says, you know, not to proclaim it on the street corners because like the Pharisees, like completely misunderstanding the basics of Scripture. Like, you're not doing it for the profit of yourself. You're doing it for the glorification of God. But anyhow, John Rich was on there, and he wrote the song I sent you not that long ago. It's a really good song called Revelation. So there's a cool story with John. I'm gonna look it up right now. Let's see. I'll read the lyrics to you. John Rich Revelation lyrics. If you guys have not heard the song, go and look it up. John Rich #1 next to Eminem. There's
All
two
right. This
things
will
here I
be the
want to.
last one, I think, before we start, because I got to go out to eat. So,
Sure, I gotta go too because I'm tired. All right, so basically, John Rich he wrote a song called Revelation. and he said he just got downloaded to him from God one day, and this song became number one on the charts above everything. Not just in country, but across the board, it was the most downloaded song above everything. And he released it the exact same time as Eminem um had released a new album, and Eminem was up on the top. So I think it was like the top four songs. The number one was Revelation, which is written by a Christian writer, and the next three were from Eminem, and they were called like Lucifer, Evil, and like Darkness. So Eminem comes out with like the super satanic album, and the exact same week, John Rich releases this single called Revelation, and it completely destroys Eminem, and it stays at number one for a long time. And these are the lyrics: dancing in the flames, the people cursed his name, bowed at the altar of the father of lies. But there's a number to their days and all their evil ways. The Lord's going to turn away from all their cries. Oh, Revelation, I can feel it coming like a like a dark train running. Oh, get ready, because the king is coming. The king is coming back again. This is verse 2. Brimstone upon their heads, millstones around their necks. They'll feel the shaking when the trumpet sounds. Um, and no matter where they hide, there'll be nowhere to run when Jesus puts his sorry, when Jesus puts his mighty foot on the ground. And then, oh, Revelation, I can feel it coming like a dark train run. And oh, get ready, because the king is coming. The king is coming back again. And then the last verse: when judgment comes like a lightning flash, their voices will wail and their teeth will gnash. He'll set fire to the evil wants and all the wickedness they've done. There'll be no time to turn around as the stars begin to hit the ground, and the mountains fall and the veil is torn with the sounding of that seventh horn. And then it goes back, and the outro is, so wrote the prophet John before his days were done. The king is coming and it won't be long. Dude, that song was number one across all boards, and it was beating Eminem the same weekend. Like, that's who this guy is, and he was just writing a new song he hasn't released yet, but he's saying it on the Sean Ryan podcast, and he was saying he got inspired to write this new song, which is called Righteous Hunter, and basically he was listening to like an award show where Diddy was on there, and Diddy said, I own your kids' souls. Diddy said that at a award show too. He looks at the
What?
camera, says, I own your kids' souls. Talking to like moms, parents, and people listening there. And Sean Ryan was just as surprised as me and you and John Rich. He's like, when I heard that, he's like, and all the stuff he said he saw with Ryan Montgomery and Tim Tebow, and just like the exposing and how evil is now light is being shown on the evil trafficking and the horrible stuff that's happening to children that everyone, wants to pretend doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote a song, and theologically we wouldn't really agree with it, but it's a song to predators, and it's being sung from parents' perspective. And it's basically saying like, try and touch my kids and see what ends up happening to you. It's like that. It's like finally like calling it out and calling out the horrible evilness of what's going on. And so many people want to pretend like, when Sound of Freedom came out, everyone was calling Jim Caviezel a part of QAnon, a conspiracy
Mm-hmm.
theorist. And it's like, this guy was just an actor in a movie of a true event. How is he a conspiracy theorist when he's like, hey, these literally happened? And the show was blacklisted for 2 years. They made the movie 2 years before it actually came out because they were having such a hard time producing it, because Hollywood and people at Bay, they would not let this movie get out. And
Mm-hmm.
why? Maybe because it's exposing elite pedophile rings, which are kind of running everything. And it's like, oh, maybe there's some truth to that. And as Alex Jones said in his court trial, when they were asking him, like, do you really believe that there's a bunch of elites who are being blackmailed by a pedophile ring to do things that to sway government elections and stuff like that, and commercialize things that the left wants, or whoever wants it, both right and left? Do you really believe that exists? And Alex Jones is like, you mean like Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein's Island? And the whole court just
Yeah.
got dead quiet.
I was going to bring that up. It's like, it's getting so hard to cover up because you have something like Epstein, which was so obvious. Like I saw a statistic. I think 93% of the American public, both left and right, want to know about what happened with Epstein. So I think people have woken up to finally say, yeah, of course, evil people are going to use evil devices to get what they want. That's We see it all throughout history. You see kings doing evil things to murder dissenters or to, work evil against their enemies and go and slay their enemies. Well, we don't really do that anymore. You have to be a little bit more secretive and a little bit more sneaky with how you operate. And what's the best way to do that? You get some sort of sexual blackmail on somebody and then you own them. So to
Yeah.
me, it makes complete sense. It would be weirder to me for people not to do that because we know that the world, um it says the prince of the power of the air, right? Satan is the ruler of this world. And so it would be strange to know that and then also just assume nothing like that is happening at all.
Yeah, no, and again, people might be saying, because we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, like, why are you guys talking about like this messed up stuff on a like explicit stuff on a podcast and like child rape and these child pornography and these pedophile cult rings that exist? It's like, well, we can turn a blind eye to it and say like this is extreme and hard to hear stuff and be like, I don't want to talk about it. It's too difficult to think about. But like I said, I think in past podcasts, I heard it said really well. Tim Tebow said this on Sean Ryan's podcast. He's like, really? That's what you're going to say? Said, I wonder if one of those little girls, those little infants that were raped from like basically birth till adulthood, I wonder, or is still in that scenario, I wonder if she was in the room with us, if you'd still say that in front of her. I wonder how she would feel if she heard you saying, I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to have to deal with it or even think about it. It doesn't pretend like it doesn't exist. Imagine that little victim hearing you say that about her and her circumstance. When we're
Hmm.
Christians who are ambassadors for Christ, who are supposed to be shining Christ's light and talking about these things. I don't know. I can't exactly go over there and kill all these people. It's like I can't like go and fix all these things myself. That's not really what I feel like God is asking us to do. But we can definitely shine light about it, and we don't have to pretend it doesn't exist like people have for so long. You know, it's also important to be said that we live in a very sexualized culture and very gross and perverse with transgenderism and homosexuality and all the evil things that are becoming more and more prevalent in our culture. And we think like, man, the end times are coming. Things, society's accepting these things more and more. And it's like, nothing new is under the sun. I can promise you, I'm going to tell you right now, during Jesus's time, it was way more sexually perverted in culture. Like perversion and sexual perversion was way more socially acceptable in Rome than it was today. Pedophilia was totally normal back in Rome. It was normal for a Roman citizen or a Roman higher up, like a noble person, to have their wife as a social status symbol, and then they would have little boys as their little playthings, sexual playthings, little boys. Like that was normal in Rome, and it was like socially accepted. So there's nothing new under the sun. Christ was dealing with the exact same stuff. And his solution to it wasn't, hey, let's go and slaughter all the Romans because how sexually perverse they were. It was, let's bring the gospel to them. No one is too far gone to be brought back from sin. Though
Hmm.
my skins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow, right? Or the song, the vilest offender who truly believes will surely from Jesus a pardon receive. So nothing new as far as evil under the sun, but it's a lot more hidden today, and we're pretending like it doesn't exist in our country when our country is one of the biggest advocates for it. So we and Justin are going to expose these things, whether or not people are comfortable hearing them. I don't like it's uncomfortable for me to think about or to talk about, but it's like I'm not going to turn a blind eye to these children. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't exist, even if I'm only touch a few people, because look, touch a few people's hearts, because look,
Bad word choice.
yeah, that was a bad word. That was a
Yo.
wrong framing. Sorry. Even if I only touch a few people's hearts with this, like it's also something to realize. One of the bigger things, if you have children,
Yeah, I was gonna
like
bring
you
this
need
up.
to, and you have let your kids have social media, which a lot of you do for some stupid reason. I don't know why you people let your kids have a phone, or like we existed without phones for a very long time in America and throughout human history. I don't children shouldn't have a phone and they shouldn't have social media until they're 18. I'll die on that hill. Anyhow, your kids are being targeted like crazy. Like you remember the Ryan Montgomery episode where he He's like, hey, I'm gonna log into an teen chat website. It's a website
Mhm.
where teens can just talk to each other. Logs into there and he's like, I'm gonna go under the alias of Ashley, 13-year-old girl named Ashley from some random place. Within 5 seconds of him logging into that website, a 40-year-old man is already texting her trying to have sex with her.
Yeah, it was within 4 seconds of him sending a message to the group chat, just to the public chat. Of I think it was a 40-something-year-old man messaged her privately to talk about it.
And then
Within 4
Roblox.
seconds.
Have you seen all the stuff going with Roblox? You ever watch a YouTuber Schlep?
I might have seen a couple videos,
I
but
gotta send it to you. There's this like 22-year-old YouTuber. He's such a nerd. Like it's so funny. Like, but he has like a very kind. He's like a kind kind of nerd. Like the way he talks is so funny. Or
okay.
he's just whatever. It's not like the guy you would think would be exposing pedophiles. He's just a normal, chill, like Minecraft Roblox YouTuber. Like that's the personality he has. But he's like totally exposing Roblox for like the fact that it's a hub for pedophiles to they have really affected a lot of young kids, taking them there
Yeah.
and pulling them off to other websites. And so
Yeah.
he's just exposing a lot of that, and Roblox is like suing him. And so he just made a
Yeah.
YouTube. He just got interviewed. Well, first off, he just interviewed Chris Hansen.
Really?
Chris Hansen came on his YouTube channel because his stuff is blowing up because of Roblox's horrible response. You would have thought
Mhm.
Roblox would have been like, "Thank you for helping us get find these people." Instead, they're just like, maybe they themselves, well, who knows? I'm making
Yeah.
accusations here, but we don't know. But now Chris Hansen's doing a documentary, and he had this guy as an interview. The documentary's not out yet, but it's just funny. The OG Chris Hansen, the guy who's been on it for a long time.
And some random YouTuber.
Yeah, some 20-year-old kid is now like, it's just funny.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right, this will be my last point, but it's kind of crazy how even stuff on YouTube, which has always kind of been seen as this, it's just a random social media platform that people post dumb videos on or whatever. But now there's full on, very serious investigators that are going and doing this crazy work where they have all the facts, they've got all of the evidence, and they go and they bust. Doesn't matter if it's pedophiles or whatever, right? Whether it's through politics or something like, the sexual blackmail or any of this stuff. They go and they do all of these years worth of research and they come out and they just unload this crazy drop of information. And there's no way you can even say no. Like it's all there. And so for this guy, I think I did see a headline for something else for Roblox. And I watched a video where um actually Roblox caught this guy who was, I think he messaged over a hundred like 15-year-olds, a 10 to 15-year-old girls. And
Jeez.
he was sending them his phone number. He was getting around. There's special filters on Roblox that don't allow you to put in your phone number, but he was doing it in a special way where he would, like Johnny said, he would get these girls off of Roblox onto personal text messages or Snapchat, and he could just say whatever he wanted, do whatever he wanted, and be really perverse. So it's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's a sick, sick world, and Christ tells us to be a light in this world and to speak out against these evil things, and not let the darkness stay in the darkness, but bring light to the darkness.
Okay.
It's horrible and evil, but look, this is real life, and you got to watch out. Watch out for your kids. Be alert. Be awake, and notice these things, and don't pretend like they don't exist. There's a lot of victims out there that are counting on people to not stop talking about this stuff, especially
Mhm.
when it's happening in America. But yeah, it's a real thing.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. So that's why we talk about it. We're not gonna stop talking about it when it's important to bring up if whenever it naturally kind of comes up. But yeah, so also there's implications here that are really important, like with Candace Owens, right? Like you're saying, like the YouTubers who are exposing all this stuff. Like Candace Owens is just a podcaster in her basement. She's like this pregnant woman, just a mom, stay-at-home mom in her basement, exposing people just through basic research, exposing people like the Prime Minister of France, who's married to a transgender dude who doesn't want to admit that he's a dude, who also happens to have a bunch of pedophile friends who've all been arrested for pedophilia and is probably a pedophile themselves because the way they met was the fact that he was 14 when he met her her in quotations because it's a dude, when he met her as his English teacher who's in his 30s. There's like a 20-year gap, and they've been dating since he was a minor, not even like a 17-year-old, which is still weird, but like a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people that suggest it's even younger. And it's like, this is your prime minister, a dude who's been groomed since he's by a, what do you call it, an abomination, a dude who thinks he's a woman and has been pretending to do this forever. Like, it's so gross and disgusting. And I'm sorry if you're a part of the community and you think like abomination is a harsh word. It's a fact of reality. You've completely destroyed what is natural to what an abomination is. You've taken your natural form and you know, you've twisted it. You're doing something unnatural and horrible to yourself. It's sad. I'm not trying to be derogatory. It's a fact of reality. And like, that's a president of an entire country that affects the rest of the world. Like, this person should not be in power. And the funny thing is, Candace Owens is getting like messages all the time from French citizens who are like, yeah, we all know this. Like us,
Really?
yeah, she's like, yeah, we've all known this forever. We're so thankful someone's finally talking about it because we don't have a voice. Like, yeah, we all know he's a dude. Like, it's
Whoa.
like a common joke. Like, we hate our minute. Like, there's been protests in the past. Like, the French do not, as much as I love the French do not.
And they love us.
Yeah, seriously. Ugh, the French and the English. I'm sorry if you like those two places. I'm more of an Irishman or Scotsman, Scottish. Anyway, sorry. I just, it's crazy. These people were on power, and now you wonder, like, now all of a sudden I'm starting to really dislike Trump more and more, dude, with the whole Epstein thing. How it's just like, hey, we're like totally gaslighting us, like it never existed. And then he was talking about pardoning Diddy. I'm like, can you imagine being a parent and one of
Mhm.
your kids were trafficked by Diddy or trafficked by Epstein, and now Trump, who literally ran his campaign on exposing these people, is now pretending like they don't exist. Like, dude, they must have threatened his entire life and his like children's life and his like children's life. There's like,
Who knows, dude? Not only that, but it was all a CNN conspiracy.
yeah, it was all a hoax,
What?
folks. It was a
What?
hoax.
What are you talking about? You
Seriously,
ran on a CNN conspiracy? Is that what you're telling me? How does that make
Epstein
sense?
killed himself. It's a fact.
Yeah.
Trump. Even that, and everyone, you might be listening to this and you might think we're all conspiracy theorists. But this stuff is like documented court cases of like stuff that's come out now about Diddy
Mhm.
and Epstein. These aren't conspiracies anymore. This whole like pedophiles ruling the world kind of stuff. Like, we have evidence of like Macron or whatever his name is, Trudeau, not Trudeau, kind of weird too, but John Macron like happens to be a lot of similarities to Trudeau. But like, this guy we know is this creep who's running France, and there's so much evidence you can't like. There's no baby pictures of him. There's so much. If you watch Candace, she has weird takes. I'll give you that. She definitely has some weird takes, but it doesn't change the fact of like, this stuff is like legit, and it's spiritual warfare. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against pedophiles in spiritual high places. It seems like.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not even to talk about all of the blackmail and the drug running. And if you want to go and it's really depressing actually, but super interesting conspiracy, look into like the CIA and the drug fields in Afghanistan. Crazy. So it's obviously we've been talking this whole time about sexual immorality, but you look at the drug markets, you look at gun markets, you look at the blackmail that people have financially over each other. You look at BlackRock and Vanguard and all this stuff. And I mean, it's so obvious once you look at it that this world it's controlled by people who worship Satan and worship themselves. And there is no love of God. They hate God. And that's the only way that they can do all this evil stuff. And we're kind of sheltered from that, I think, especially here in America. You can kind of just live your life in your community, and that's kind of all you experience. But once you start looking into it, it's so dark and demonic.
There's a podcast. You might have heard this guy who got interviewed. Someone told me about him a long time ago, but he got really high up in the Freemasons, really high up there, like basically the top of the top, part of like even above like the 33rd. Reich or whatever they call it, and and
The
he
33rd Reich is back, baby.
Though they do call themselves like
Mm.
the Fourth Reich, I think, or something like that. I'm not sure, but anyhow, I'm not sure. But they the Freemasons, and he just talks about, he's like, I
Oh boy.
got so high in the Freemasonry, I then went over to Satanism and Luciferianism, and he's like, and once he said an old mentor of me told me that once Satanism became, I needed a scapegoat or I needed to get out of it for whatever reason because of legal reasons. He told me go join the Mormon Church, and so he does, and he becomes like up really up high in the Mormon Church, and he's like they're all the same. He says
Wow.
it says it's all the same. It's the same mentality, same ideas. Once you get up to the point where you start, because all of them are kind of like Mormonism, Luciferianism, and um,
Scientology.
Scientology. And Scientology is its own animal. But even the Freemasons, like there's levels to it. There's secret knowledge. The more like you start off just thinking like this is just a humanitarian thing. This is just like cool kind of um whatever. I'm just helping people out. It's a cool club. There's some secreticity about it, but that's not too weird. Like it's just, it's a private kind of like yacht club kind of thing but there's benefits with it. But then the more you get up to it, you start learning more and more. It's like, actually, the Freemasons are about this. But then you just keep going higher and higher and higher, getting more and more ritualistic, more and more into the cults. And just more and more evil stuff you start realizing. And he talks about how, hey, got to the top of the Mormon church and we were doing human sacrifice. And there was like full on
What?
demonic. Yeah, this is like the part of the Mormon church you're not allowed to see. This is like the top of the top. Because the more you grow in the Mormon church, like there's certain parts of the Mormon church, like if you were born into the Mormon church and let's LDS, and let's say you've been going your whole life, and let's say like you're an 18-year-old, there's still parts of the church that you have no idea about, and you know that as an 18-year-old, you're like, well, one day I'll get to the point where I'll get to learn more. I'll get to be more part of the elites. I'll get to like be like experience more. I'll get to go to this part of the temple, and it's just a ladder. You just keep climbing and climbing, and
Mm-hmm.
certain people they allow to get to the highest point. And this guy, he broke off from it, and he's just talking about his experiences as a Freemason and being a part of
Did
the
he
Mormon
become a
Church.
Christian? Or
Yeah,
why
he's a
is he?
Christian. He's a born again Christian now.
Okay.
So God saved him from all of that, and now that's why he's exposing it all. He's an elderly man. It's really interesting. I'll send it to you, but no. So, um, yeah. One way I heard it put, people are like, what is kind of the weird association here with like these elites and pedophilia? Like, why is it so connected? And it's because these people, first off, they're money hungry, and then money doesn't do enough for them. So then they get into power because money can only buy so much. Power is your next high. And so now these people, they go a lot of times to sell their souls to Satan and they make deals with the devil kind of thing, literally and figuratively. And the power is kind of what they ultimately consume. And so like these leaders, this is Satan's world and they're under his power. And what is the way Satan can hurt God the most? By hurting an innocent child, the most innocent, pure form of God's image. The most sanctified, holy, beautiful thing on this earth is a child. They're innocent, they're pure. Jesus loved the little children. He says, if you're not like one of these, you're not going to get into heaven. Christ
Mm-hmm.
says, woe to whoever one of you offend one of these little children. It would be better than a milestone. A stone would be tied around your neck and you'd be thrown into the depths of the ocean. So that's kind of um, that's kind of the reality of this world. And I think that's why there's this association with these elites and all these weird cults of the power. And why does it always starts off with just power and sex and money, and it just gets worse and worse? And once you get to the worst of the worst, the top of all these organizations or these elites, it always somehow turns into some kind of pedophilic religious when you call ritual. And it's like, why? And it's like, because that's you take the most pure thing and you corrupt it. And that's what Satan does. And he wants to hurt God so bad. And also, you're destroying the soul of a person who starts partaking in that. You're just, man, like, yeah, those people can still be saved and go to heaven. But I think it's really, really hard. Like, God can do anything, but like, that's a hard, hard line for anyone to come back from. Anyhow, I think instead of getting today's reading, because I think what we talked about was still really good today. We've been doing about an hour. I'd say
Hmm.
the theme we'll go over it next is not we our plan for the Bible our ambassadors doesn't have to be a weekly Bible study. I mean, sometimes ambassadors can just be this conversation like this. It doesn't have to be always like reading into the Bible.
Hmm.
We're talking about being an ambassador for Christ and exposing these things. But what we're going to be reading next week is going to be about Christ. He starts talking about how he's the bread of life. And so then my question for you, Justin, since we don't have to get into the reading, since we don't have much time left, tell me what does it mean to you when Christ says he is the bread of life?
Well, as usual, I think he means it figuratively, right? He says similar things later on. I think he says, I am the door, right? I am the door by which you enter into salvation. He doesn't say those words exactly, but that's basically what he means. And so we know it's figurative. He talks about being the bread of life. I forget the verse, but let me see if I can find it super, super quick. Um, it says, For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. And so, I mean, we'll read this next week, but the Pharisees basically talk about Moses and they say, Moses was given manna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Moses was given manna as a token of him being God's special prophet or whatever. And then Jesus comes back and says, Well, I mean, let's see. Verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave not to you that bread from heaven. He's like, well, Moses didn't do that for you. God did that for you. And now God is sending me. I am the modern day bread from heaven. I am the modern day manna that instead of physically eating, right, you will partake of spiritually. So I think it's a very spiritual um, connotation that is still very hard to hear, and we'll see the repercussions of Jesus saying that next week as well.
Yeah, I like the verse a lot to go with what you're saying. In verse 35 of John 6, he says, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. It's kind of almost similar to the woman at the well, right? I am
Hmm.
whoever believes in me will have a spring of living water come out from them, and they'll never thirst. He says, I offer you water that will never go dry. And so I agree with what you're saying there. It's really cool. Like this, it's kind of fun. It's sad. It's honestly sad because these people we're talking about today, they're chasing the bread of life. That's what they want, but they get so misguided that instead of going to Jesus for these things, we all do it in some manner or form. We all have our vices. We all have our ways that are unpleasing to God, in which sometimes we deal with our trauma. Some people it's drinking. Some people it's what do you call um just binging YouTube or binging Netflix. Some people it's pornography. Some people it's self harm. Like we all have different ways in which we either punish ourselves or we do something that gives us some sort sense of meaning or feeling when we feel numb because of the pains and sufferings of life, or some kind of purpose. These things can sometimes give us a sense of purpose only because it's really just a chemical thing in our brain. There's spiritual things happening there too, but we get this dopamine rush, whether it's from drugs or sex or booze, and it tricks your mind into feeling like it's doing something that is useful or purposeful, even though it's very short lived and you hate yourself after. And that's why it's this constant pursuit. And we're just chasing ultimately, and even sometimes in our careers or sometimes in our vocation or our hobbies, we'll make that our entire personality, our identity, or these groups or these ideologies, these cults or religions or um even our sexual orientation. People will turn that into their entire identity and make that the reason for why they have purpose in life and base their entire personality around this this idea and this purpose, this protest, this something. Whereas Christ is saying, it's not in religion, it's in me. It's not in this movement, it's in me. Christ is saying it's not in these vices or these what do you call stimulants or these distractive um, things that we do to distract us from the pains of life. Christ says, I am your identity. I am the bread of life. I'm the thing that you are hungering after, that you're trying to feed that hungry lion inside your soul, that God shaped hole. You keep trying to fill it. Like we said last week with transgenderism, they're have some kind of trauma and they're trying to fill it with everything but God, the one who created them perfectly and wonderfully and fearfully, and who knows exactly who they are and who they ought to be. And whether it's them or us or whatever it be, Christ is saying, you are thirsting and you are hungry and you have a very, very deep appetite for purpose and meaning. And that's good because I created you that way. I didn't create you for no reason. There is a purpose and there is a meaning to your life. And I'm trying to show you that it's me. I am the bread of life that will give you life abundant, not abundant in materialism, but abundant in peace and grace and love and truth, the fruits of the Spirit that's abundant in me, the reason for existence, right? Christ is the first fruit of creation, which means everything from creation comes from him. So both physically and then him being the word, the logos, the thought, the idea, everything comes from Christ both on a physical level and on a metaphysical level. He's literally the orator of existence, both physical and spiritual. So he's the fulfillment of us physically and spiritually. In the resurrection physically and spiritually in because death, right? And then spiritually in the completeness of who we are and who we're meant to be, which is children of God, his servants, and also his brother, as he is our like our elder brother in sorts, right? Or God's sons and daughters. So soldiers, servants. So him being the bread of life it's that missing puzzle piece. Come and eat this bread, right? Later on in John 6, he says, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part in me. And he's talking about communion, right? Because he's talking about that same bread. You think about the Passover bread. There's this terminology that we use called breaking bread with people. It's a biblical term. You break bread over Passover with these people, remembering what God did in the Old Testament with the Israelites, right? The same way in the New Testament, Christ breaks bread and takes a communion with his disciples. And that bread of life, which is Christ, is broken on the cross. Is broken. That bread is broken for us. So when we break bread, that terminology with each other on communion, it's the body of Christ we're breaking. It's the symbolism. It's the remembrance of Christ's body that was broken for us. And then the wine is the blood that was spilt for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think of when I think of Christ saying he is the bread of life. It's that bread of life that everyone is pursuing, especially these elitists and these people in power. They're eating from Satan's table because Satan has promised them that he's the bread of life, but it's this never-ending pit that Satan keeps promising he'll fill up, and he temporarily fills it up with the sex and the drugs and the women, the power and the influence, and then what do you call popularity? But then it's fleeting, and they go right back to him, rather than surrendering to the actual bread of life, actually giving themselves over to the one who will fill them forever with purpose and meaning, both
Mm-hmm.
here and the life to come after.
I think this kind of ties into it, but it always bugs me when, I've had Bible studies or Sunday school teachers or things like that, where people will say something to the effect of, you know, I don't want to get the phrase wrong, but it's basically the idea that the world. So the way that I look at the world is, if you are fully consumed by the things of the world, it is an unfulfilling existence, right? Like you said, there's this hole that you feel in yourself. But all of the stuff that you're doing is extremely pleasurable. And so I think that's important to keep in mind, where, of course, if you feel like you're missing something, you're going to try to fill it with things that make you feel good. That's how humans operate, right? God literally made our brain with reward systems to do that. And so we find fulfillment, Christians find fulfillment in Christ, and we find joy and peace in Christ because we're looking at the long-term consequences. We're not trying to fill the short term to make ourselves feel good. And so it's natural for people that are not Christians, who do not have the hope of salvation or do not have a comforter with them. It makes complete sense that they would go to farther and farther levels to try to balance their unhappiness with some sort of temporary joy. And so once again, Christians can exist in a state of turmoil in our lives around us. We can be going through really hard things, but we can still have peace with God, and we can still place our trust in him. And even though our current circumstances are not going well for us, our joy remains the same, or it should hopefully remain the same, right? Our external circumstances don't change the peace and the joy that we experience within our hearts. Now, you might literally be depressed, right? Sometimes I get depressed where I can feel my brain is not working as well. Again, that's a natural human response, but that doesn't mean I'm robbed of my joy or my peace.
And as ambassadors, right, the point is not just to hold on to it for ourselves, right? You know, Christ says, "Where were you when I was hungry? Did you and you gave me no meat, or you did get, or you when I was hungry, you did give me meat. And the least of you did it unto the least of these brethren, you done it unto me," right? So he's saying, when you fed that homeless person, you were also feeding me. But here's a question: now that we're seeing, as we're talking, Christ is the bread of life, as much as he's asking us to feed people this physical food. Christ also says, "Man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God." But now he's calling himself the bread of life. And so this comparison I'm making is, as ambassadors, you know, yes, it's important for us to be filled with the bread of life, that is Christ, but are we also feeding other people? Are we offering that meal to other peoples that they may be filled with the bread of life? Are we figuring out ways in which we allow someone to take a bite of that bread and to be, or drink of that water that the woman at the well heard from Christ, that they may never hunger again, that they may never thirst again, spiritually speaking, from the core of who they are. What does Peter and Paul say to the crippled man? "Silver and gold have I none, but such as I do have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." And they offered him a physical healing, but was the more important spiritual healing that they gave them, that they Christ gave them through the apostles. It was salvation, the same way Christ did with the man at the pool of Bethesda. Do you want to be made whole? He goes and he's made whole. He's like, "You've been made whole. Go and sin no more unless the worst thing come unto you." So, the bread of life offered to us, are we offering it to others? And I think that's a decent close, because Jay-Z Lib here's gotta run. Thanks for listening, everybody. I do want to apologize because AI feature, I wasn't able to figure it out. When I edit afterwards, like the guitar playing intro, that's why I didn't do it today in the outro. It just cuts it out. And I'm not able to turn it back on. So when I pressed AI voice thing, after I'm done editing this, there's an AI feature on this app that basically amplifies our voice and makes it sound way better quality. I tried listening to it without, and we're just too quiet. But this actually increases our volumes and makes it sound like we have a lot nicer mics than we actually do. So
Perfect.
I'm gonna keep the AI feature, and I'll maybe figure something else out for the guitar intro. But if you guys were confused with the last two episodes, I was playing guitar as I introed and then as I outroed, but it just wouldn't. You can't hear it. So anyhow, thanks again, Justin. Love you, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Remember, keep being
Yeah, we'll see you
ambassadors for
guys next.
Christ.
See you next week.
See you, boys.